Hey, this is Dave again from cheapwinefinder.com. And today we have another wine for the holidays. Could be Thanksgiving, could be Christmas, could be New Year's, could be tomorrow afternoon. We do not care. It's a French bubbly with hundreds of years of tradition behind it. And the very first bubbly to use the traditional method. And no, I'm not talking about champagne. I'm talking about, well, this one, it's a brand. It's a Saint-Hilaire Brut 2017. It's also a vintage dated wine, and it's a Blanquette de Limoux. Blanquette de Limoux means it's, Blanquette refers to white grapes, and Limoux is a place in the Languedoc. It's in the Pyrenees Mountains on one side. You got the Mediterranean on the other. And it's where bubbly was first founded. They started making Blanquette of... We're using French words and my English isn't good, so how am my French going to be any good? But the Blanquette of Limoux was 100 years before Champagne. There's stories about... the Dom Perignon came there and visited and saw what they did and then took it back to Champagne, which there isn't really anything that proves that point because back in those days, in the 1500s, it was the monks who were making the booze. You know, in Belgium, they're making beer. In France, they're making cognac and wine. And here in Saint-Hilare, Abbey, they were making bubbles. Now, France actually kind of perfected the whole thing, and it went on to bigger and better things, but they're still doing it in Limoux, in the Languedoc, and they're still doing it with kind of the same grapes, more or less. They use the Mauzac grape, which is they only use it in this one little area. Like I said, this is a vintage dated bubbly, so it's going to be different every year. A lot of inexpensive in this price range. I found it for $9.99 at Costco of all places, but it sells for around $10 all the time. Most of those wines, and even ones from France, which this is, are non-vintage, which means they take whatever grapes that year and they blend other years into that, so it becomes a house style. Every year it's the exact same thing. You know what to expect, but these vintage dated wines are going to be different every year. And I've had this in the past where the Mauzac grape, it brings an apple flavor to the wine, including the core. And sometimes the core and the seeds are really prevalent in the wine. This time, no. I mean, it was just an apple taste. You get the core kind of thing going, but that just makes it kind of interesting. And it's got other, it's a light. It's got lemons and it's got peaches and pears and limes and those kind of things going on. A salty thing, a yeasty thing. It's bubbly. It's legit bubbly. The biggest difference between this is it's in the bottle. Second fermentation happens in each and every bottle. They ferment the wine, do all their secrets in the first fermentation. They pour it into the bottle, add a little bit of yeast, a little bit of sugar every bottle, put a temporary stopper in there, and turn it every other day for a year. In Champagne, at least every year and a half. And at the end of that, you got bubbly. And here it's only a year, so it's not going to be as intense. It's not going to have the depth but it's going to be pretty good stuff, especially at $10. And for a wine that has 475 years of tradition behind it, the Saint-Hilare name is the Abbey that way back when they found records of, written records of monks producing bubbly there. So they named it after that. They said in the U.S. it's named after that. This wine is sold under a different name elsewhere. And let me wet my whistle with some bubbly before I go on. Hold on one second. And it's crisp, it's clean, it's got a little bit different taste, it's a little bit huskier flavors. The acidity is nice. It allows the flavors to fold, but it doesn't really bite. And it's got a good flavor to it. I mean, that Mauzac grape might be a little weird for some people. If you just get Cremant of Limoux, Limoux. Yeah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of those words correctly. That one, Cremant, is basically the French word for sparkling wine. And that's the other kind of flavor of bubbles they have there. And there they can add more Chardonnay and more Chenin Blanc. Here, along with the Mauzac, there's 5% Chardonnay and 5% Chenin Blanc. And the other ones, you get more of that, which are more familiar flavors. But I kind of like this. I mean, any wine that can hang in there for 475 years, has got something going for it. I mean, if it wasn't good, it would have disappeared a long, long time ago. And it's $10. It might have more in common with maybe Cava. Cava is in the Catalonia region, just south of there. I mean, the Catalonia is not that much farther. It's going to be maybe an hour south or whatever. I've never driven it, so I can't tell you how far it is, but it's that close. And the Cava region uses 3 different grapes, and it still uses the same traditional method, though its tradition doesn't go back as far as Limoux do. They're only been doing that for 100 years, but the wines themselves, price-wise and how they make them wise, are kind of in the same ballpark. So if you kind of like Cava, but you will like it maybe more elegant, it's more French style. I mean, maybe Cava tends to be a little more rough and ready, which I like too. So it's in that ballpark, and it's really good to drink. And I just talked myself into another sip. Oh, and here's another thing. If this is bubbly that was being made 100 years before champagne isn't enough, and it still exists, it's still going on to this day. When Thomas Jefferson passed away, they did an inventory of all his possessions, and they found like 30 bottles of this, Blanquette of Limoux, and his wine cellar. So Thomas Jefferson was drinking this stuff like crazy back in the day. So you got Thomas Jefferson, you got 475 years of history, you got maybe they taught Dom Perignon how to do it, maybe they didn't. You still have it going on today, and you got it all for $10, and it's made in the same method as champagne, and champagne ain't selling none of their stuff for $10. Yeah, though not that I don't like champagne, which I do, but anytime you can get French bubbles, legitimate French bubbles with history, French bubbles that Thomas Jefferson says is okay, and you're only paying $9.99, I'm all for it. So there you go. This is the Saint-Hilare Blanquette de Limoux 2017. I might have mispronounced every single word, including the English ones in this podcast, but I think there is a written thing that goes along with it somewhere, hopefully, and they're probably misspelled, but that's a different story too. So that's it for me. Bubbles, $10, French, got history, got lots of history. Good, a little bit different, but really good, and it doesn't cost anything, and the holidays are coming up. Start giving this stuff a try so you can get your game together when the holidays actually hit. I think the next one I got going is an inexpensive Pinot Noir for Thanksgiving. Pinot Noir goes with turkey if you're doing the turkey thing because it's light enough or it doesn't overpower a delicate turkey, white meat type thing. And it's got cherries. It's kind of a harvest thing going on. So we got that coming up. So hang in there, have fun, keep it cheap, and I'll be talking to you in a couple of days and speak more French because, I should speak more French. I need all the help I get. Adios and bye-bye.